Good day, everyone. My name is Warwick Simokaitil, and I am one of the reporter of this lesson, which is lesson 5, the artists and artisans. And this is the learning outcomes. By the end of this lesson, both reporters and listeners should be able to outline the history of emergence of artists and artisans. Recognize and critically discuss the function of state, the sponsorship in the field of arts and culture through the National Artist Award and the Gawad sa Malikhain ng Bayan or GAMABA, and identify and define the different individuals and groups who take the rules to the world of arts and culture, and classify the practices of artists in terms of form, of medium, and technique. What is the difference between artists and artisans? Madali lang naman siyang i-define kasi yung isa doon is relatable sa salitang art, while the other hand naman is relatable to craft. So, ano ibig sabihin nun? Ang artist, the word artist is generally defined as an art practitioner such as painter, sculptor, choreographer, dancer, poet, musician, and the like who produce or create indirectly functional arts. Pag sinabing indirectly functional art, ito yung mga uh, art na ginagamitan ng imagination. While artisans is a craftsman such as yung mga carpenter, carver, plumber, blacksmith, weaver, and the like who produce directly functional and or decorative arts. So pag sinabing artisans, ito yung mga, so ang artisans is essentially manual worker. Sila yung mga may mga skills, ginagamit yung skills nila para makabuo ng isang item. While yung artist is nagpo-focus lang talaga siya for entertaining at kung ano yung sasabihin ng mga viewers niya. Yun yung artist. Ang mga artisans ay nagsimula ito nung panaong Middle Age pa lang. Ito yung mga gumagawa ng, for example, yung gumagawa ng armor suit, sila yun. Yung mga mananahi, mga gumagawa ng espada, ito yun, sila yung dating artisans. Although may mga artisans pa rin naman tayong ngayon nakapareho noon tulad nung mga carpenter, yan, mga weaver, carver, yan. Nag-i-exist pa rin sila sa panahon natin ngayon.
Good day everyone, I am Laila Carillo. The topic that I've discussed for today is about the artisans and the guild. But now let's get down to the business. In Peter Drucker's seminal book Post-Capitalist Society, 1993, he stated that the real controlling resource and the absolutely decisive factor of production is neither capital, not land, nor labor. It is knowledge instead of capitalists and proletarians in the classes of the post-capitalist society are the knowledge workers and the service workers. So arguably, one type of knowledge that fuels in the 21st century is creativity. So this is evidence in the recognition that professionals in the creative sectors are integral drivers and movers in society, and an integral segment of this sector are artists. But who are they? So artists have treated a long history. So their roots can likewise be traced in one of the major milestones in human civilization in the first episode of the video series is New Ways of Seeing. Yun na yung nagawa nila. So, a project by the New York Times. Project yun ng New York that time. New York Times, T Brand Studio, and jewelry giant Tiffany and Co. So, art critic Jerry Saltz in 2016 underscored the significance of not only the discovery of the cave paintings, but also the paintings themselves. He asserted that these first artists invented a way to get the three-dimensional world into two-dimensional attached value to their own ideas. So, all of the history of art flows both animals, hunting scenes, and a variety of symbolic figures, and are created during the Stone Age. So, um, example of this, they are scattered all around the world, from France, Spain, Namibia, Australia, and Argentina, to name a few. Of course, these works were not yet some show in the highly systematized art world, let alone consider as art. So, next, let's proceed the artisan and the guild. So, yeah, have you ever wondered why some examples of artistic and creative production have survived to this day? So, museums are packed with numerous artifacts and interesting objects from all over the world that have survived centuries for us all to see. So, magnificent structures that are often appreciated not only for their historical significance but more so for their aesthetic characteristic that render them unique. So, become tourist destinations for those who wish to explore and see the remarkable facade, interior, and even the minutes of details up close. So, perhaps what made the difference was the materials, medium, and the principles behind the process. So, knowledge in managing and conserving all of these objects and structures, enabling the retention of the integrity of the network, the intention of the artist in terms of design and overall aesthetic. So, consider the Gothic cathedrals and the other mega structures that were built all over Europe during the Middle Ages. So, craftsmen and builders in the past did not have sophisticated terminologies and principles that architects and engineers abide by today yet. They fulfilled overlapping rules such as the draftsman, architect, engineer, and even as the builder. What they had was sense on how materials behave, how the environment, light, and weather patterns affected structures, and other more intuitive principles of creation. So, let's go to experimentation unlocks must not also be forgotten Gothic cathedrals, along with other structures inspired by its architectural tenet. So, have survived through times not only by their sheer durability, but more through the articulation of the processes that they followed. So, there is an example of this would be Cologne Cathedral in Germany. It is but one of the many examples of early Gothic architectures. So the account was the master mason Gerhard Ryle. So he started the project in 1248. So was only completed truly 600 years. so claiming the records as one of the longest construction projects to date. So this is an example of Colon Cathedral and Gothic. This is example of Colon Cathedral in Germany. So next we have next. So what it's mean here is a kind of formalization of craft education is which regulation was set in place. Here skills qualification was needed for an apprentice to register under the particular craft guild. So these guilds were prevalent during the Middle Ages, particularly during the 13th to 15th century, where towns had formalized group of artisans or craftsmen who took on a particular specialization or trade. So, shoemakers, textiles and glass workers, carpenters, carvers, masons, the idea of individual capacities of success. So rather in the commitment to work together as a collective. So guilds were a type of social fellowship. So an association structured with rules, customs, and rights and responsibilities. Then with a lifetime commitment to a particular trade, an artisan develops immense skills and expertise in his craft. So next. So this is the Guild of Woods and Stone Culture. So this brought to light various ways of thinking about transferring knowledge and skills by visualizing and articulating the principles, processes, and tricks of the trade both in words and in print through manuals and publications. Of course, these printed publications were done cheaply and did not have the same thoroughness as with handbooks and manuals of biblical proportion. So, aside from funds, another hurdle was the fact that some of the knowledge that went into production was difficult to put into words. So this can be, at least in a way, that often we find ourselves at a loss when tasked. So with explaining a particular step or process in something that we created, so consider this in addition to the fact that receiving the explanation of how something is made does not automatically makes us empresarios, so who can carry out the task bomb free. So next, so let's get down to family Dürer. So this is Albrecht Dürer. He was born in 1471. He's the eldest child of Dürer. So his father was a goldsmith. That is why he also apprenticed as such. Later on, shifted to the visual arts. So Albert Dürer is known as printer or printmaker. So during that time, it was customary to travel after completing an apprenticeship. apprenticeship to gather more experience and knowledge elsewhere. So, his life was ripe with travels, fame, and fortune. One of the biggest credits to his practice was his dedication and interest in scholarship with the attendance to a close friends meetings of artists and scholars. He also published quite a number of books and treatises, including those that talk about practical skills as an artist, which would be useful to other artisans and craftsmen who dared to read it. So mostly on perspective and human proportion, his works were written in the first person singular format. So practical in the way it was written and was supported by illustration. It also helped that his illustrations were laid out opposite the text that explain. So although he held that his illustration were laid out, although he was caught between the time when canons were still being followed. So he suggested to his readers that his was merely recommendation, and that if they found a better way to go about it, then one should depart from what he had learned. So next, next here in Lowy Bohol started to build in 1822. The ceiling paintings were rendered Trump UL style depicting biblical scene in 2003. Became a national historical landmark. It was therefore unfortunate that the church was one of those heavily damaged during the devastating earthquake that rattled Bohol in 2013. So the only section of the structure that remained erected was the bell tower, although it is but fragment of the real thing. The photos taken by Project Isama were able to document the beauty of the ceiling paintings prior to its destruction. So next, the last is the Stonehenge. Stonehenge, the impulse to create, is at the core of human civilization, much like the impulse to communicate through language early on. Artists were embedded in the development of culture, and in turn, art was nurtured by this varying culture in which existed. The work produced varied from the prosaic. So to those that explores a wide range of aesthetic possibilities, seen every day, the interaction with these objects was intimate in the sense that waving patterns in textiles, visual features, and a design or plan for architectural structures. So, and ritual and burial implements, among other artists, even created places and spaces where communities may gather. So, there are numerous monuments and memorials that are plotted over the world, such as the infamous Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. So there are others like the the cave paintings that have an aura of mystery, like the pyramids of Giza, or have alluded comprehension like the Stonehenge. So that's all to my topic, and thank you.